So, Bafundi, today we are going to be altering this fantastic fur coat. And the one thing about fur is that usually there are no seams. Sometimes you'll have a seam, but in general, you won't actually find a seam. So there is, a very professional way to do this, but you have to have a specific machine for that, and also have that skill, which we don't have. So we are going to do it in our way. And this one, fortunately, it's quite easy. It's just an alteration on the side. So I'm going to use the seam of the lining, and I'm just going to tuck my knot in there underneath. And here I want to, in a way, transfer the seam to the outside. So I'm just going to stitch, and you'll see everything you stitch is going to kind of grab the fur like this. Similar to when you're stitching a puffer jacket, every stitch tends to grab that down fleece that's inside. But at the end of the day, just like I said, in a way, transferring the seam to the outside. Now, depending on what's going on, I try really not to cut because we don't, like I said, we don't have the machinery to really join it again. This is not joined with a regular machine, it's joined with a specific fur joining machine. So what we're going to do with this is actually, once we've done this, just return it in like that and stitch it. And then just leave this excess there so that, at a later stage, someone else could let it out because it's quite a valuable fur, this one. And also so that it's something that our machines can actually do because, like I say, we don't have that machine. So yeah, I'm just going to continue with that. You'll see over here, I've already done it. And that transfers it to the side. Now here, you can kind of just see where that seam is running. It's very difficult to actually see the stitch that we've done. You can see more or less where it is. And if it's a very thick fur, you really want to just try and move all of the hair to the side, out of the way of the stitch line. We're going to do this a little bit more after we've stitched, but depending on the kind of fur, just try and move it out of the way of the stitch line. And then folding on that line, pinning is not going to be your friend in this case, which is one of the very few cases in which pinning is not your friend, because this is of course going to damage the leather by putting a hole through it. Because it's fur, you're not going to see that hole, but the damage is still going to be there, so you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so I'm just going to, just folding everything on this seam, so in a way creating a seam in the middle of nowhere. I'm then just going to look at my notes to see what are the measures, and then I'm going to draw that up. So this is just my habit of putting too many pins. Actually, I really do not need to do that. Here, this is my alteration mark. I'm not going higher than the armhole. Had we needed to do that, we would have had to redo the whole sleeve portion, which would have been quite a tough job for us. So I actually convinced this client we're not doing the sleeves, we're just coming from the under the sleeve here, under the arm. You're going to come around 4 centimeters and then keep that straight down. Now here at the bottom, the machine, as you know, is always pushing, and especially a fabric like this, it's going to be very easy to mismatch here. So make sure this is 100%. Actually, I'm going to first do just a little piece here, just to catch that, because if this mismatches and we have to unpick and redo, we're going to cause quite a bit of damage, because it's not like a fabric where you can unpick it and restitch it without a problem. This, every stitch is going to create a very permanent hole, and we can't actually get rid of that. So this really needs to be perfect. So make sure you secure that before you carry on. then stitches as long as possible, and also check the tension, make sure that you've got all of that set up before we come here to stitch, because if there's a problem and we have to unpick, it's going to be quite a bit of damage. So no, otherwise there's really nothing to it other than just making sure that as you stitch this doesn't end up misaligning, because that, I suppose no one will die, but it's just not professional and there's no way to fix it other than to unpick, which is then going to damage the leather quite a bit. There we have it. Bit of stitching there. You see here, a little bit of drama with the stitching. Let me just check this other side. Yeah. You know, this is like as the fur gets thinner or heavier, but that actually between you and me is not going to make a big difference. Just keep it our secret. As you can see there, not really great stitching on the back side. But yeah, anyway, all right. And of course, you know, because this is moving the whole time, got to be careful that it's not getting out of control. So here, so you can't really see that. Now, depending on the length of the fur, you can, you know, this one, because it's very short, I'm just going to kind of rub on this seam, and that, you know, any fur that's like kind of caught into the seam can rub out like this. If it's a very long hair, you can go with the back of a pin, and let me show you. You find your seam. So this is a very furry thing, and you just pull with the back of a pin like this, so that the hairs can all come out of the seam. But here it's not necessary. These are very, very short hairs, so you can just rub it kind of backwards from how the hair is lying, and that will bring it out. So you can basically not even really see that. And here I'm just going to by hand stitch that down. Leather, you can't really iron. You can beat it with a hammer or like a block or something like that. So let's do that with this one and see if it actually makes a difference. Just a piece of wood there at the back. What I'm going to do is beat half of it and see if I can really see a difference. Yeah, to be honest, I can't really see a difference, but it makes me feel better. So here with you know, if we were doing this underneath, not with the lining, then we could glue it to the one side and then beat it like that. But in this case, because if we took the lining off, we then have to reattach it here, and for that, wow, my machines are just not on that level. So yeah, I'd rather just did the whole thing through the lining. So obviously with, you know, with anything in life, but with these alterations specifically, you've just got to see what is going to be the best job for this client and for this garment. Okay, and then yeah, I'll just stitch that down by hand. Yeah, so there you can see some fantastic hand stitching by the fabulous Albert to just push that seam allowance to the side. And on the outside, you do see a bit of a line there, but I mean, there's nothing really you can do about that. And yeah, you know, the same principles apply for leather work. You'll use a hammer, which I'm going to do now. I'm just going to give it one more hammer instead of the iron. And you know, with this, like I said, it's short hairs, so they don't really get caught in the seam so much. But with longer hairs, you can just go with the back of a needle and just kind of pull them out of the seam that they've been caught into. Yeah, and that's that.